How's it
Yo,
going?
I
Hi,
am feeling
Fraser.
fresh, energized, happy to be here.
We're
Hey,
happy to
welcome
have
to
you.
the welcome to the Survivor Now podcast. Hey,
Thank you for having me. This is a blessing.
oh, what a great episode.
Great, traumatic, whatever you want to call it.
Historic. Historic is definitely one I think I would say.
Historic.
Yeah. So how you
Now we
feeling?
You know what? Look, I feel really, really good now that this weight has been lifted off my
Mhm.
shoulders. It's this sort of, it was this anticipation, this nervous, sort of anxious anticipation of what was going to come. And finally, I can talk about it and share the story and hopefully even move on from it as well.
Fraser, I can share in that. I looked at my episode with a theater full of people, 32. 32 guests, and we all had a great time. And nobody knew I was getting voted out that night.
Oh,
Oh wow.
So
I,
I
I
empathize
look,
with you.
yeah, yeah.
Now,
It's
what
it's
was going through your
interesting.
mind?
I knew I had anticipated that this is my leaving, that this was the episode of me. And I kept it really small last night. I wanted literally immediate family, my
mhm.
girlfriend and my best mate. We just kept it really small and intimate because I didn't know how I'd feel. It
Mhm.
was months ago that we finished, and it was kind of really back my memory and sort of how I remembered the show, etc. So to relive that trauma, I kind of wanted it to be in a very, very calm setting.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Can you tell us, like going into that tribal, what was your plan? Like what was the plan that you had in place in your mind? Who was the
Mm,
name that you were going to write
mm.
down before everything kind of blew up?
Yeah, cool. All right, so we go to the challenge. We lose, surprisingly. Um, we come back now. For a few days, this has been brewing. Simon is hell bent. It's George. It's George. But there had been this sort of division within the tribe where, even though the girls really got along with Simon early on,
Mm.
Shani and Liz, they weren't connecting. And Simon's sort of authority, or you do this, had gotten to people, had gotten to the others to the point where they just felt pissed off, I think, and they wanted to change. And so Simon came up to Geordie and I, and look, I get along with Simon really well. We had a great time together there, but Geordie and I felt that really clearly tribe swap was imminent, and as soon as that happens, Simon is going to go bro up with the other guys, Sean, David, Sam, and Matt. These big dudes. They're going to become a boys' club, right? And it'll leave us in a minority. So we've got to think long game,
Mhm.
longevity. How do we set ourselves up in a really good majority moving forward? At the bottom of the majority, it doesn't matter. In the majority, we made that decision. We said, Simon came over and said, "Yep, all right, George, we're on board." We said, "Yep, yep, yep." The moment he steps away, absolutely not. Geordie says, "We've got a plan. Are you in? Do you want to do it or not?" He's happy to vote anyway. And I said, "You know what? I trust you, brother. Let's do it. Let's shake things up." And that's how it went.
Now, was the tension as thick as it portrayed on TV as it was at Tribal with the bickering back and forth between Simon and George?
It was more intense. We didn't have the background music, but it was wild. Honestly, there is so much happening around you. You're trying to decipher 100 messages every minute,
Mhm.
and trying to decipher what does this mean, what's next, who are people actually voting for, who can I trust, who can't I trust. There's so many things that you're rattling around in your brain, to make a call of what actually is going to happen. And no one could have seen what was going to unfold, especially with the twist of that individual immunity challenge, which is just unheard of.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, you know what, looking at it from this perspective and saying you had a chance for individual immunity. You didn't know George had immunity. And did you know that Simon had something from the cookie jar?
I did know. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So essentially, everyone other than Stevie knew that Simon had what we believe was an idol,
Hmm.
right? Now, the show has shown us that it is not.
Right.
And but at that time, you have to trust people on their merit, right?
Yeah.
And Geordie only got to feel it in Simon's pants, didn't get to see it, but you kind of go, well, what else could it be? And I think Simon was so convinced that it was an idol as well, But to put it, long story short, it was the most epic tribal I've ever seen. And I think it's one that will go down in history as being just all out chaos.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I do have a question. So because every single person pretty much going to tribal has been a new person, a non-returnee, right?
Yeah.
Even though you had a plan in place, did that at all come to your mind? Were you worried about that at all? Or was that, you felt solid in your plan, and you just, felt good going in?
No, look, I felt solid. I felt that we had played it perfectly, that Simon had no clue that we were gunning for him that tribal. We were going in. He felt safe. He felt secure, that I think he anticipated he would be getting some or a vote purely from George and maybe the girls that he had expected. But you see how shocked he was when George outed Geordie and myself as essentially traitors, right? So, and that sort of betrayal. He was absolutely shocked. He did not see that coming. And had everything gone to plan, I think it would have been a pretty clean blindside for Simon. But unfortunately was not the case.
Was it when you saw when your name popped up the first time, was that the first indication that you might be getting blindsided?
Look, when there was the bickering between George and Simon, that George was begging him essentially to play his idol for Stevie, which was now purely for only one intent, and that was to burn the idol, which we still thought was real, right? Burn the idol. It would have had no impact or change in the outcome of the game, considering those three had voted for me. I had a sick knot in my stomach that for some reason I haven't been outed or mentioned by George, and George has been going after Geordie and saying how much he has been involved in Simon's betrayal, right? So there was a knot in my stomach, but at that point, the votes had been cast, but not yet read. And it was just like slow motion that this was unraveling. And then as soon as my name came up the first time, I realized, and I was like, yep.
Now, going into that tribal council, is there anything now that's already aired and I understand we relived that whole moment over and over. Is there anything you've done differently?
You can obsess about it and you can, worry about it. But at the same time, all you can think is, maybe if I had an extra conversation with that one person, maybe Liz and Shani wouldn't have voted for me. Maybe they would have spoken back to George and said, no, actually, we want to keep Fraser. We won't just go with your plan. But I honestly believe at that point in the game, those two girls, Liz and Shani, and so much respect for them, and I think they're awesome people. They had just such a blind faith and trust in George that whatever he says as this amazing strategist of the game and a massive observer and watcher and follower of Survivor, that if he says this is what we do it. So I don't take it personally from either of them.
You will replay this whole scenario over and over again. I was doing something this morning. I was like, maybe if I'd have said something, I might not got voted out. And I'm like, it's just it'll pop up at odd times in your regular life while you're sitting there, and it'll come up. But again, we also see some stuff posted where we see that the show is already aired. You get a chance to hang out with each other, see each other after the show. Who's on the hero tribe that you've met that you like, hey, look, it's been a pleasure. Great to meet you in this great adventure. Was it Gary?
Crazy because it's crazy because you when we're there, we're so separated the entire time. You really don't get to know each other at all unless you actually spend time on the beach together. So whilst I exchange glances and high fives and looks with some of the Heroes tribe, essentially, didn't get a chance to know any of them, which is sad because they're all, I think, really special people in their own individual right. they're all very interesting people. They all come from such different lives. But you know what? I'm really excited to hang out with some of them. I've enjoyed watching Sean's game so far. I think he's having so much fun with it. You know, he's in the boys' club, but you know what? He's being naughty. He's playing a villain, really, much more than a hero. The whole, he's obviously buddies with Sam and David, but they're still out there scouring for an immunity idol, which he has found.
He already got it.
Yeah.
So that's super fun to see. I think Ben is an awesome person. I think he's such a light of life. I think he brings so much positivity and energy to the game, and he's such an intelligent person that there's a lot to learn and a lot to watch from him. I think, I'd definitely love to see some of those guys outside of the game for sure.
Now, the one twist in the game that you were part of where Gary comes over from the tribe, he's a part of your tribe, but you didn't know he was going back. How would you feel about that twist being added to the game?
I think it was incredibly unfair. Did we not have less? Did we not have few enough numbers at that point? It was insane, right? Like the point in time where they actually lose a challenge fair dinkum, right? We won that challenge fair and square, and they get such an opportunity like that. That's crazy. But in the game of Survivor, you have to be prepared for that. As much as it didn't work in our favor, there could have been a twist just like that worked exactly in our favor.
Yeah.
Right? So you've got to be okay with that. You've got to be at peace with that.
Now, you brought up Sean. Is Sean that imposing in person when you're at a challenge and he steps up, you be like, I don't want to go against Sean on this one?
I'm 5'7", he's 6'7". I'm 62 kilos, he's 110. You do the math. But you know what? I think he's a really gentle soul, and I think he's got kind eyes. So as much as his physical stature looks very imposing, and it's a big asset, obviously, early in the game, we see him dominating these very physical challenges. I think it's an asset to him, and I don't judge him for it. I don't think it's as much as I'd like to think it was maybe an unfair matchup. It is what it is. And you see that in some of the spouts where we go head to head, villains versus heroes. We use Stevie as a sacrificial lamb, which does work strategically in our benefit. And we won the cookies, and we've won.
Got to outsmart him.
We had that epic win where we had those carts where we're pushing and we've got the wood and we have to create the bonfire at the end, which from the outset we looked like, the heroes have got this in the bag, but we turned it around and we won. That
was a good challenge. I know you got a host of interviews a day. Before we let you get out of here, a couple more questions. One, what do you take away from this entire experience?
That it can be very easy to sit at home and watch it on TV and go, oh yeah, as if you didn't check that tree root. As if you didn't check that tree root. Idol was right there. When you're in the jungle in Samoa and there are thousands of trees everywhere, it is so overwhelming. I think it definitely looks easier than it truly is when you're there and living it. But I think I learned, how probably resilient I am personally, and how much of a hard time and sort of a really just constant level of anxiousness you do have, but you're trying to keep it all under control because you want to be that cool, calm, collected tribe mate who others can trust because you're not volatile all over the place. And I think that level of resilience that it built within me was really important, and I'm definitely better for it. And I've now got the knowledge and the know-how that if a second chance season came along, I'd be pretty well prepared for it.
Oh, definitely. Tegwyth, do you have anything else? Any questions?
Well, I think you answered it. My question is always, if you got that call, are you playing Survivor again? Do you wanna go back out?
When I left, if you asked me a day after that tribal, probably a different answer. But you know what? If the Survivor gods shone down on me and said, "Fraser, we want you," you'd be silly not to take that opportunity.
Yeah, it's you know what? It's a great ride. And thanks for coming on with us.
Yeah, thank you
Hey,
so much for taking the
appreciate your
time.
time.
Thank you, guys. Honestly, love the pod. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.